I was at a local coffee shop yesterday, and I noticed something fascinating. Two people were having a conversation, but it looked like they were speaking completely different languages, even though they were both using English. One person was talking nonstop, and the other person just looked totally lost and disconnected. It made me think about how often we talk to each other without actually connecting.
That happens way more than we think. We often assume that because we are speaking, we are automatically communicating. But those are two very different things. Speaking is just making sounds with your mouth. True communication is about making sure your message actually lands in the other person's mind and heart.
Exactly. It's like sending a text message that gets stuck in the outbox. You think it went through, but the other person never received it. Today, we are diving deep into the secrets of effective communication. Why do some people instantly connect when they speak, while others struggle to be understood?
It is a skill that can completely change your life, your career, and your relationships. And for everyone listening who wants to improve their English, this topic is perfect because good communication isn't about using big, complicated words. In fact, it is often the exact opposite.
That is so true, Liam. Many intermediate English learners feel insecure because they don't know fancy vocabulary. But the best communicators in the world actually use simple, clear language. They focus on clarity rather than trying to look smart.
Think about great leaders or famous speakers. They don't use academic jargon. They use words that a 10-year-old can understand, but they use them with purpose. But here's the surprising part. Most people think great communication starts with the mouth, but it actually starts with the ears.
Oh, you mean active listening. That sounds simple, but it is actually quite rare nowadays. Most of the time, when someone else is talking, we aren't really listening to them. We're just waiting for our turn to speak. We're practicing our next sentence in our head.
Guilty as charged. I used to do that all the time. Someone would be telling me a story, and I would just be thinking about a funny joke I could say next. That is called passive listening, or just waiting to talk. True active listening means you are completely focused on understanding their perspective, not planning your response.
It requires giving your full attention. When you actively listen, you pick up on small details, their tone of voice, and even what they are not saying. It makes the other person feel valued and respected, which instantly builds trust.
There's a famous quote that says we have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. If you look at high-performing managers or successful negotiators, they usually spend about 70% of a meeting listening and only 30% talking.
That is an amazing statistic. 70% listening. It gives you so much data. It allows you to understand the underlying needs of the other person. But most people don't realize this because they think the person talking the loudest is the one in control of the room.
Actually, the person asking the questions is usually the one directing the conversation. If you want to guide a conversation smoothly, you don't need to dominate the talking time. You just need to ask the right questions.
Questions are like the steering wheel of a conversation. But there is an art to asking them, right? If you ask questions that can be answered with a simple yes or no, the conversation can die very quickly. For example, if I ask you, "Did you have a good weekend?" you can just say, "Yes," and then it gets quiet.
Exactly. That is what we call a closed question. It shuts down the momentum. To keep things flowing naturally, you want to use open-ended questions. These are questions that start with words like what, how, or why. Instead of asking if I had a good weekend, you could ask, what was the best part of your weekend?
That forces you to think and share a real answer. It opens up new doors for the conversation to explore. I could then pick a detail from your answer and ask more about it. It creates a beautiful chain reaction of sharing.
It makes the conversation feel effortless. It takes the pressure off you because the other person is doing the sharing, while you are just showing genuine curiosity. And curiosity is a massive superpower in communication.
It really is. People love talking about themselves and their experiences. If you show that you are truly curious about their life, they will naturally find you charming and easy to talk to, even if you didn't say much about yourself.
It is a great hack for language learners who feel nervous. You don't have to speak perfectly for 20 minutes. You just need to ask 2 or 3 great questions and listen intently. But what happened next in my own communication journey was unexpected. I realized that my body was sending messages before I even opened my mouth.
Body language. They say that more than half of our communication is nonverbal. Our posture, our eye contact, and our hand gestures speak incredibly loud. If you are saying something polite but crossing your arms and looking at the floor, people won't believe your words.
Your body always reveals your true feelings. If you feel defensive or bored, your body telegraphs it immediately. On the flip side, if you want to look confident and open, you need to align your physical presence with your message.
One simple trick that global speakers use is called mirroring. It means subtly copying the body language or energy level of the person you are talking to. If they are speaking softly and sitting calmly, you shouldn't be shouting and moving your hands wildly.
Mirroring creates a subconscious feeling of safety and comfort. It signals to the other person's brain that you two are alike, and we naturally like people who are similar to us. Of course, you shouldn't do it too obviously or it looks weird. Just a gentle alignment of energy.
Another major element is eye contact. Too little eye contact makes you look dishonest or insecure. But too much eye contact can feel aggressive and intense, like a staring contest.
The sweet spot is around 60 to 70% of the time. Look at them while they speak. Look away naturally for a brief moment when you are thinking, and then return your gaze. And this changes everything, because it makes the connection feel warm and steady rather than forced.
Let's talk about clarity. Have you ever listened to someone who speaks for 10 minutes, but at the end you have no idea what their main point was? They repeat themselves, go off on random tangents, and confuse everyone? We call that rambling. It usually happens because the person hasn't organized their thoughts before speaking. In professional settings, rambling can damage your reputation because it wastes people's time. Effective communication requires structure. There is a fantastic technique used by top executives called the PREP framework. It stands for point, reason, example, and point. It is a simple mental map that keeps your answers concise and impactful. I love that framework. Let's break it down for our listeners. First, you state your main point clearly, no fluff. Then, you give your reason for that point. Next, you provide a real-world example to illustrate it. Finally, you restate your point to wrap it up neatly. Let's do a quick demonstration. If someone asks me why learning English is important, I would say, point. It opens up global career opportunities. Reason, because most international companies use English as their primary language. Example, my friend Sarah got hired by a tech firm in New York because she could speak English fluently. Point, so mastering English is essential for global career growth. Brilliant! That took less than 30 seconds, but it was incredibly structured and powerful. Anyone can use this formula, whether you are taking an English exam, doing a job interview, or just chatting with a friend. It prevents you from getting lost in your own sentences. It is so practical. And structure also helps with managing emotional conversations. Sometimes communication breaks down because emotions take over. When we feel criticized or attacked, our natural instinct is to push back or get angry.
That is a dangerous trap. When emotions go up, intelligence goes down. If you respond immediately when you are angry, you will almost always say something you regret later. The secret here is to pause. A 3-second pause can save a relationship.
A pause allows your logical brain to catch up with your emotional brain. It gives you time to choose your words carefully instead of just reacting blindly. It shifts you from being defensive to being constructive.
There is a method called the I message technique that works wonders during difficult discussions.
Instead of pointing fingers and saying, "You never finish your reports on time," which makes the other person defensive, you focus on your own experience.
Right. You could say, I feel stressed when the reports are late because it delays our entire project. By starting with I feel instead of you did, you are not blaming them. You are simply sharing the impact of their action.
It changes the whole dynamic. Suddenly, you aren't fighting each other. You are working together to solve a mutual problem. But here's the surprising part about difficult conversations. The most important words are often the ones you decide to leave out.
That relates to the concept of brevity. Knowing when to stop talking is just as important as knowing what to say. Sometimes, silence is the most powerful tool in communication. It gives your words weight and lets them sink in.
In negotiation, silence is a legendary strategy. Most people feel highly uncomfortable with silence, so they try to fill the empty space by talking more. If you make an offer and then just stay quiet, the other person will often talk themselves into a better deal for you.
It shows immense confidence. Nervous speakers hate silence, so they rush through their sentences. Confident speakers embrace pauses. They treat silence like punctuation marks in a book. It gives the audience time to digest the information.
For English learners, this is fantastic news. You don't need to speak at maximum speed to sound fluent. Slower, deliberate speech with deliberate pauses actually sounds much more professional and authoritative than fast, chaotic talking.
Speed often hides poor pronunciation or weak structure. When you slow down, you give your brain time to choose the correct grammar and vocabulary, and you give the listener time to understand your accent easily.
It is all about confidence and control. But most people don't realize this because they watch movies where characters talk incredibly fast and they think that is the goal. Real life, especially in business, requires clarity over speed.
Another secret to connecting with people is storytelling. Our brains are literally hardwired for stories. If you share raw facts and statistics, people might remember them for an hour. But if you wrap those facts inside a memorable story, they will remember it for years.
Stories trigger emotions, and emotions create memories. If you want to persuade someone, don't just show them charts. Tell them a story about a person who faced a challenge, overcame it, and achieved success.
Think about it. When we were children, we fell asleep listening to stories. As adults, we watch movies and read books because we crave narratives. A good storyteller can make even the most boring topic sound absolutely thrilling.
And a good story doesn't have to be epic or dramatic. It can be a simple mini story from your daily life, like your coffee shop observation from earlier today. It makes you relatable and human.
It builds an instant bridge between you and the listener. For example, if I am teaching a lesson about resilience, I could just define the word. Or I could tell a quick story about how I failed my first driving test 3 times before finally passing. That vulnerability makes the concept stick.
Exactly. Vulnerability builds authenticity, and authenticity is magnetic. People can spot fake enthusiasm or corporate speak from a mile away. When you are real, people open up to you in return.
As we near the end of our discussion, let's look at actionable steps for our listeners to improve their communication skills daily, especially if they are practicing their English. Communication is like a muscle. You cannot build it just by reading about it. You have to actively train it.
Step number 1 is to record yourself. Use your smartphone to record a 2-minute video of yourself answering an open-ended question or explaining a topic you love. Then watch it back with a critical but kind eye.
That can be painful at first. Nobody likes the sound of their own voice on a recording. But it is an eye-opening exercise. You will notice your body language, your pacing, and if you use filler words like ah, or like too frequently.
Eliminating filler words is an instant upgrade. Instead of saying when you were thinking, Just embrace the silence. Replace the with a quiet breath. It immediately makes you sound more composed and professional.
Step number 2 is to practice active listening with the next person you talk to. Challenge yourself to not interrupt them, not plan your response, and ask at least 2 follow-up questions before you share your own opinion.
That is an excellent challenge. You will be amazed at how much more you learn about people when you actually let them speak fully. And step number 3 is to use frameworks like PrEP whenever you need to give an opinion or answer a question at work or school.
These simple strategies can completely transform how you interact with the world. Effective communication is the ultimate key to opening doors, building deep relationships, and accelerating your career success.
It really is, Emma. And by focusing on clarity, listening, and structure, anyone can become an exceptional communicator, regardless of their native language or current vocabulary level.
Thank you for joining us today on SmartSpeak Podcast.
If you enjoyed this conversation and learned something new, don't forget to subscribe and share this podcast with a friend.
Keep practicing, keep improving, and keep speaking English.
We'll see you in the next episode.
Bye, everyone.